We're up to 1944-45. Montreal Canadiens are still a dominant team, but there's good news for the rest of the NHL. Players are returning from the war. Players are leaving military service and coming back to the NHL. The Rocket Richard, this is when the legend really truly starts. 50 goals over a 50-game schedule. He finishes well ahead. I think that the second place goal scorer was Elmer Locke with 32. So this is not just he scores 50 and 50. He is dominant, scoring 50 and 50. Locke, however, isn't one to not set records himself. He sets a record with 54 assists that season over 50 games. October 18th, 1944, the Detroit Red Wings signed Ted Lindsay to a contract. October 25th, 1944, Toronto signs goaltender Frank McCool. Goaltenders have started getting rotated out a little bit. You can see that not all goalies are playing 50 games at this stage. There are some who play 46, some who play 35. So we've started seeing extra goalies rolling into the league. Montreal leads the way at 38-8-4. Detroit's next up at 31-14-5. Toronto 24-22-4. Boston 16-30-4. Chicago 13-30-7, and then the New York Rangers are bringing up the rear at 11-29-10, which had to feel like they won the cup compared to the season before, where they had 6 wins. Hart Trophy goes to Elmer Locke of Montreal. Calder goes to Frank McCool of Toronto. The Vezina goes to Bill Durnan of Montreal, and Bill Mosienko of the Chicago Blackhawks wins the Lady Byng. Semis and finals are still done the way they were done previous seasons. First versus third, second versus fourth, winners in the final. Toronto beats Montreal 1-0, 3-2 in Montreal to take a 2-0 series lead. Montreal fights back, wins 4-1 in Game 3, loses Game 4 in overtime in Toronto 4-3. Montreal then, I don't know if Toronto played that night because the final score is 10-3 in favor of Montreal. I assume Toronto was either hungover or half the team didn't show up. But they recovered in time for Game 6, which they won 3-2 to win the series in 6. Boston and Detroit. Boston wins 4-3. Boston wins 4-2. They're up 2-0 after winning 2 on the road. What can go wrong when you've won 2 in a row on the road in Detroit? Ask the Canucks. Boston goes home, loses 2 in a row, 3-2 and 3-2. Detroit then wins Game 5, 3-2 in overtime. Boston wins Game 6 to force a Game 7 with a 5-3 win, but Detroit wins Game 7 5-3. Now remember, the last time that Toronto and Detroit met each other, Detroit had a 3-0 series lead. This is in the finals, the last time they met each other. Detroit had a 3-0 lead in the finals, and Toronto won 4 games in a row to win in 7. So what happens this time? Let's find out. Toronto, it's shutout time. Frank McCool, 1-0, 2-0, and 1-0. So they're at home. They've won 3 in a row, all by shutouts. Game 4, Detroit says no. 5-3 win in Toronto. They then win at home 2-0. So Harry Lumley, new goaltender for the Detroit Red Wings, fresh face at 18 years of age. He posts a shutout of his own, and then posts another one in Game 6, 1-0 in overtime. Frank McCool's 3 shutouts to start a series, though, still a record. And then in Game 7, Detroit at home loses it to Toronto 2-1. Toronto wins the series in 6. Toronto's your Stanley Cup champion for 1945. So this is kind of just how it works. And again, tomorrow we'll take a look at 1946 and what happened then. When we're fully recovered from World War II, and at least it's over, so there's no players in it. But it is an interesting time for hockey. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And if you're a Montreal fan, you got to be excited because we're now into the Maurice Richard years. And if you're a Toronto fan, you got to be excited because we're starting to talk about some of those 13 Stanley Cups the team has to its credit over its lifetime. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.